The white slave trade was one of the biggest slave trades in human history. It involved the capture of millions of white Europeans, who were then transported and sold as slaves across the world, most notably to the Muslim world. This video will cover the list of the top 10 European countries worst affected by this trade. Number 1. Greece. Ever since the Arab Caliphates, Greece was victim to several attacks by Muslim empires, including the Umayyads, the Abbasids, the Mamluks, and the Seljuks. However, the most devastating raids were conducted by the Ottoman Empire. Beginning in the 14th century, the Ottomans launched several invasions against Greece and its islands. While conquest was the main goal of these attacks, they also served another purpose: to capture prisoners and sell them as slaves in the Ottoman Empire. Thus, over the course of several hundred years, an endless number of Greeks were taken captive and sold off into the Ottoman slave markets. In the year 1537 alone, over 20,000 inhabitants of the island of Corfu were carried off to be sold into slavery in Istanbul. Number 2. Russia. Russia was by far one of the most affected European countries in the white slave trade. The lack of geographic protection made the country an easy target for foreign invaders. Many empires would thus seize this opportunity and launch deep incursions into Russia. One of these invaders was the Crimean Khanate, a successor state to the Mongol Empire. Between the 15th and 18th century, the state would launch unprecedented and devastating raids into Russia, with the sole purpose of capturing slaves. Most of them would then be transported by the Black Sea and sold in the Ottoman Empire. It was a huge business, involving the capture and enslavement of hundreds of thousands of Russians. This trade did not end until 1783, when the Russian Empire conquered the Khanate. Number 3. Ukraine. Like Russia, Ukraine was another huge victim to the slave raids of the Crimean Khanate, perhaps even more so than the former. While the true number of Ukrainians kidnapped by the Crimean raiders is unknown, it has been estimated that at least 1 million people were taken and enslaved from the regions of Dnieper, Podolia, Volhynia, and Galicia between 1500 and 1644 alone. The massive scale of this slave trade undoubtedly had a negative effect on the population. In Podolia alone, 1/3 of all the villages were devastated or abandoned between 1578 and 1583. Number 4. Spain. After being conquered by the Umayyad Caliphate in the 8th century, Spain became a huge source of slaves for the Muslim world. During the Reconquista, the Muslim and Christian kingdoms in Spain were at constant warfare with each other, resulting in numerous Spaniards being enslaved in the process. These slave raids became especially prevalent during the reign of Almanzor. In 985 alone, he sacked Barcelona and killed and enslaved the entire population. Even after Spain was reconquered by the Christian kingdoms in 1492, Spain continued to be harassed by Muslim slavers, this time by the Barbary pirates. The population of entire villages along the coast were abducted in slave raids, resulting in heavy depopulation. Spanish ships were affected as well. In 1667, so many seamen had been captured from the Basque provinces by the Barbary pirates that those provinces could no longer fill the quotas of seamen to the Spanish marines. Number 5. Italy. Out of all the countries in the Mediterranean, Italy was by far one of the biggest victims of the Barbary slave trade. Its close proximity to North Africa made slave raids a frequent occurrence. Some of these attacks led to the depopulation of entire cities and towns. One of the most famous raids was the sack of Vieste in 1554. The entire population of around 10,000 people were enslaved or beheaded by the Barbary pirates. Such attacks became so frequent and devastating that entire coastlines from Venice to Malaga became deserted because people feared to live there. Number 6. Austria. While Austria was never conquered by the Ottoman Empire, it did suffer from many Ottoman invasions, including slave raids. In 1529, the Ottomans attempted to take Vienna. The siege lasted 18 days and ultimately resulted in failure. Before retreating, the Ottomans pillaged the countryside of Austria. Thousands of people were murdered, while another 20,000 people were kidnapped and sold into slavery in the Ottoman Empire. Only a fraction of them were able to return to Austria. In 1683, Vienna was once again attacked by the Ottomans. This siege was also a failure, and the Ottomans withdrew, but not before ravaging the countryside and kidnapping its inhabitants. According to estimates, 57,220 people were captured and taken away as slaves by the Ottoman troops in this campaign, the vast majority of them being women and children. Number 7. Britain. While the Barbary pirates mainly captured slaves from the Mediterranean, this was not always the case. Beginning in the 16th century, the pirates began to expand their operations and raid other parts of Europe. One of the most frequent targets became the British Isles. For over 200 years, thousands of British ships were captured and their crews sold off to the slave markets in North Africa. The situation was particularly bad in the 7th century. The attacks from the Barbary pirates were so frequent that British sailors refused to put to sea for fear of being captured by slavers. And the sea was not the only danger either. Soon the Barbary pirates would also raid the coast of Britain and kidnap men, women and children at will. In 1645 alone, 240 people were seized as slaves in Cornwall. Number 8. Iceland. In the summer of 1627, Iceland witnessed one of the most dramatic and unforeseen events in the country's history. Two groups of ships of Barbary pirates from Algeria and Morocco landed on the island with the aim to capture as many human beings as possible. The pirates raided several towns along the southern coast of Iceland, killing 50 people and kidnapping another 400. At the time, this equated to around 1% of Iceland's population being uprooted. These captives were then brought back to the cities of Algiers and Salé and sold off into slavery. Only about 50 of them were successfully ransomed after 9 to 18 years of servitude and returned to Iceland. Number 9. Croatia. As the Ottoman Empire launched further expansion into Europe, Croatia became a place of permanent warfare. Beginning in the 15th century, the Ottoman troops would constantly raid the Croatian countryside, plundering towns and villages while capturing the local inhabitants as slaves. The frequency of these raids continued all the way to 1593, after the Ottomans had occupied large parts of Croatia. By that time, hundreds of thousands of Croatians had been kidnapped and sold into the Ottoman slave markets. In light of the territorial and demographic losses suffered by Croatia during its wars with the Ottomans, the 15th and 16th century are considered to be one of the darkest chapters in the country's history, so much so that it is known today as the 2 centuries of Weeping Croatia. Number 10. Malta. With a distance of only 300 kilometers from North Africa, Malta became susceptible to several attacks from Muslim powers. One notable incident happened in 1429. The island was attacked by the Hafsid kingdom, who attempted to capture the capital city of Medina. The Muslim invaders failed to take the city, but managed to kidnap between 3,000 and 4,500 Maltese civilians, who were then sold as slaves in North Africa. With a population of as low as 10,000 people at that time, this was a catastrophic blow to the demographics of Malta. However, the most devastating slave raid on the Maltese archipelago was conducted by the Ottoman Empire in 1551. During that year, the island of Gusu was invaded, and almost the entire population of around 6,000 people were taken off into slavery. The vast majority of them never returned to Malta. It took about a century of resettlement for Gozo's population to recover.